the Honourable Ronald Jones, Dr. the Honourable David Estwick, Principal, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Mr. Eddie Edghill, Mrs. Vanessa Edghill, Mr. Andrew Edghill, Mr. Robert Edghill, Senator Rashid Orlando Marvell, Dr. Chelston Brathwaite, Permanent Secretary Ambassador Michael King, Permanent Secretary Cecile Humphrey, Deputy Principal Professor Eudine Barreto, Campus Registrar Mrs. Jacqueline Wade, members of the Finance and General Purposes Committee of the Cave Hill Campus, or Deans, Dr. Carlisle Pemberton, Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture of the St. Augustine Campus, Mr. Daniel Jordan of the Barbados Agricultural Credit Trust, heads of departments, other members of the campus community, members of the media, colleagues, friends of Cave Hill. Mr. Paul Altman, Chairman of Campus Council, sends his regrets for his inability to be here with us this morning. He would dearly have loved to have been here. Good morning, all. My name is Anthony Fisher, Director of External Relations for the Cave Hill campus of the University of West Indies. I also coordinate science and technology initiatives for the campus. There's nothing as potent as an idea whose time has come. We are here to celebrate the donation of land by the Edghill family to the Cave Hill campus for the establishment of the UWI Centre of Food Security and Entrepreneurship. To begin our ceremony, I would like to ask our Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Sir Hilary Beckles, to extend a welcome.
This is an historic moment, and I have written a history lecture. And I'm asking you to forgive me. But historians like to speak into the historical record because students will come along 100 years later and they will want to know why we did not document the moment appropriately. Honorable Minister Jones, our distinguished Minister of Education, and I am not the only principal who weeps on his shoulder. It has become a habit of late for principals to be running to the minister and weeping on his shoulders. And he knows that I have wept on his. And he has embraced me on many occasions in recent months. And he would always say, as a good Christian man, don't worry, God will provide. Our distinguished minister, Dr. Estwick, who really has been a stalwart behind all of our initiatives, science and technology, now agriculture. Our distinguished members of Parliament, and especially of the Senate, Mr. Marvell, especially who has been a long-standing advocate of education, of course, and to Francis Chandler. All of our colleagues in the ministries, our permanent secretaries with whom we work through the university, and we are always told that the permanent secretaries are the solutions to all of our problems, and we usually have better relations with the PSs than ministers because we know the PSs really control things. All of my colleagues at the University of the West Indies, including Dr. Carlisle Pemberton, who is here from the St. Augustine campus to represent the principal of St. Augustine. Mr. Danny Jordan, who you all know is a long-serving lover of agriculture and development. And I should tell you that Danny Jordan and I want to beg you, urge you in your support here. Danny, stand, because Danny has been a very close negotiator between myself and Mr. Edghill, and Danny and I pitch marbles together. Now, that's important. We pitch marbles together. Deep in the recesses of Rock Hall Village in St. Andrew, we were the barefooted boys. I was a better batsman, he was a better bowler. But we grew together, and we have been very good friends over these last 50 years. The Edghill family, Eddie and his beautiful wife, Vanessa, and their children, because I want to extend a special welcome, because we know that this young man here is a careful student. And not only is he a careful student, but he's a very indisciplined young man, because he wrote a paper on cricket studies at Capefield campus as part of his research project. So clearly, he and I have a special bond. We have a special bond, and that's very important. So he has an open door to my office, because we can talk cricket anytime, anyhow. And of course, Big Brother, who is the farmer, and we had a wonderful exchange a few moments ago about the future of agriculture in this country. Food security, entrepreneurship, crop science, very, very important, the modernization. And the veteran, Ms. Laurie, how are you, sir? It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Of course, Laurie and I, we go way back some 30 years. We've been close allies on many issues. And for those of you who don't know, he is our honorary consul for the Republic of Haiti. So if you want to work with Haiti, go to Haiti, please go and get your visa and get sorted out. This is a moment in history that represents a new beginning in the provision of 21st century education in Barbados. It is a new beginning in the building of strategic partnerships intended to elevate the University of the West Indies to new levels of service to the people of Barbados and the wider Caribbean. It signifies the coming together of individuals and institutions dedicated to one principal overarching concern: securing the future of our region. I know for sure that I share with my colleagues within the university a mentality shaped by this unrelenting quest to find ways and formulate ideas to advance our country and our region. We are committed to honoring the trust of society that our university will be a respected and reliable source of prosperity and the fuel that drives the engine of growth. For this reason, I am deeply concerned at this time that inadequacy typifies the quality of domestic discussions on the rebuilding of the national economic enterprise within this global context. I am also concerned with the lack of clarity in national thinking and speaking about the contribution of the University of the West Indies to economic growth and to prosperity in Barbados. Added to this is my concern with the orchestrated attempt to cast the university in a negative public light by recasting the record that shows that the university is a proven and trusted partner in securing economic growth and ensuring prosperity. The university is actively engaged in finding solutions to what I consider to be the 5 big issues that face the Barbados economy at this time. The 5 issues of which I speak are the following: increased competitiveness in the export sector, economic diversification of the financial services industries, sustaining the investment in the human capital, particularly in respect of science and technology and agriculture, the economic enfranchisement for the entrepreneurial majority, and finally, food security, poverty confrontation, and a new Bill of Rights for the poor. To this end, our country is in desperate need of economic heroes, men and women who are willing to place their resources and the generosity of their nationalism to bear upon the rebuilding of our country. This day, we recognize Mr. Eddie Edghill and his dear and beautiful wife, Vanessa, as the latest economic heroes of the new path on which the private sector embarked to build up the Cave Hill campus as a relevant international academy of learning and research. Their substantial gift will be a pillar in the science and technology strategic initiative we are preparing to roll out in the months ahead. The Science and Technology Initiative will serve to transform country and campus by driving the digital revolution, energizing energy research for the green economy, revitalizing agricultural research, and generally laying the science foundation for economic transformation. The Edghills are today's pioneers. They are path breakers. They believe in the commitment and the competence of their university. We know the depth of this affinity because their son and nephew are members of our community. They are the economic heroes so badly needed at this time in our national need. In years to come, this center might very well spawn a new and innovative faculty of food sciences at Cave Hill under the guidance of our sister campuses. This plantation, Duke Plantation, at a much earlier time, was a part of the dawning of the distinguished Duke University in the USA, a legacy well known. The Edghills, as the current owners, are now throwing the support of this Duke Plantation behind the Cave Hill campus. Duke University and the UWI will be joined therefore by history as partners and beneficiaries of this plantation. As a substantial investment, it will therefore drive the ongoing internationalization of the UWI at Cave Hill. We have modernized and internationalized the physical plant and curriculum at Cave Hill campus this past decade on the basis of private sector investments. We have not relied on the government to achieve these targets at the Cave Hill campus. The vast majority of the 20 or more structures we have built at Cave Hill in this period received the blessings of the government, but we did not rely on government funding for these infrastructures. It was never our plan to ask the government of Barbados, in a difficult financial environment, in a recessionary global context, to fund the physical plant at the Cave Hill campus. We have been very pleased that the government of Barbados did agree to fund a state-of-the-art new library at Cave Hill campus nonetheless. And Minister, we are so excited by the fact that we hope to see this new library constructed in the context of next year, our 50th anniversary, and that will be a remarkable gift to the University of the West Indies by our government. And we are looking forward to that because, you know, when we started 49 years ago, we had a small library. The library is still there. Those days we had 1,000 students. Now we have 8,000 students. So you can see the importance of that library, and the government has agreed to fund that for us. The expansion of the capacity at Cave Hill was necessary over the years. In 2000, the campus was chronically constrained in terms of capacity. It was rejecting 65% of Barbadians who qualify to enter. Using quality criteria, it was determined that a university that rejects 65% of its citizens because of physical capacity cannot be called a quality institution. And I want you to feel for a moment how the month of August for me, it was always the month I wanted to run away from Barbados. It was the month of my birthday, that's true, but that was the month when I would receive hundreds of phone calls from parents. My son has finished his O-levels, my son has finished his A-levels, my daughter has finished the KIT, my children have finished what we have asked them to do. We've got them through high school, we've got them through the college. What are we going to do with them now? Where are they going to go? they've done well. What to do with them? And we are saying, no, we can't take them because we have no space. Very, very difficult for any principal receiving emotional phone calls. And there are thousands, sometimes people really worried about their children. And they're qualified. They want to go on. They want to go on. And we are saying, no, we cannot take you. We have no space. KFL was not funded to serve the purpose for which it was imagined and built by the right excellent Errol Barrow. It received no capital in its budget from the government, and this is important to understand because unlike our sister campuses, the Mona campus and the St. Augustine campus, that receive capital for physical plant on an annual basis in their budget, KFL historically has never received capital in our budget because the positions of governments in the last 30 or so years has been, we are paying for the tuition, the full tuition of students. We're not funding the physical plant. So therefore, the physical plant had to be funded. The campus had to find the money. We had to find the money to build KFL campus physically because we did not get capital from the government because the government was funding 100% for students. And we could not expect the government to fund 100% for students and fund the physical plant as well. So we took it upon ourselves to find the capital to build KFL as a modern university. The private sector came to our rescue. The government gave us the land very generously. The government gave us some commercial guarantees, but we were on our own to find the capital for our physical expansion. We found the capital and we responded to the needs of Barbadian citizens. But we did not expand the KFL campus in a random fashion. It was not a random expansion of students. The enrollment took place in areas of national need, crafted to support the services economy model on which the economy was built. We expanded the enrollment in finance, in banking, in tourism, in management, in project evaluation, trade policy and law, environmental studies. The expansion took place in the areas of national need and in the areas where the economy was requiring additional human resources. The growth was planned scientifically, and the Barbados economy grew as a result of these investments. Barbados prospered as a result of the decisions taken by the University of the West Indies. All major decisions were made in consultation with government because that is how the university is governed. KFL was celebrated within the UWI family for scientifically planning its capital expansion, student enrollment, and curriculum modernization. It was done with precision, and the campus received commendation. Minister Jones has been our guide and advisor and my confidant, and I have it here, my shoulder on which I would lean. And he has guided us through all of this. He has been a true friend of the university in all of our committees, helping us to clarify complex issues and make difficult decisions. And so when I hear, as principal, untrue and unfair comments about the affairs of the KFL campus, I would harass Minister Jones for an intervention. At KFL, we believe in open discourse, and we encourage it. I am a proud member of the public discursive culture. But we urge, and again I plea, that persons publicly discussing the operations and intentions of the university should utter words that are truthful, fair, and reasonable. And furthermore, that aggression should be tempered by maturity and concern for the best interests of the campus and the country. The Edghill family has made a timely investment in our university. This is the first time that the traditional plantation sector of Barbados has made a significant investment in embrace of the University of the West Indies. Commercial Barbados, corporate Barbados have done well by the CAFL campus. But this is the first time that the traditional plantation sector has embraced our university with a significant symbol of its commitment. This is a monumental moment, and I wish to capture it correctly for the historical record. This land is a part of an ancient slave plantation. Our ancestors were enslaved on these lands. The Edghill family has sought to confront this history by doing what is right, placing a share of their landed wealth at the service of education and nation building. This is an emotional moment, emotional for the Edghill family, and emotional for all of us within the university and, of course, the government sector. It is a moment for reconciling the past with the future and providing our country with the kind of vision that will serve us well. The Edghills are economic heroes of education and development. We treasure this reaching out to the University of the West Indies. And let me say this, Eddie. I need to say this. Because a few months ago, when you walked into my office and we sat, had a cup of coffee and discussed issues, I felt the generosity of your spirit. And I felt the kindness of your heart. I felt it right there in my office. And I appreciated that. History has shown that good men do good deeds and are always blessed by the divine. And of course, you have been doubly blessed because you have your beautiful wife, Vanessa, in your life. You've been doubly blessed. We will put our best foot forward in the innovation of a new food science culture in Barbados. We have engaged the expert services of Dr. Brathwaite. Charleston, where are you? the quintessential genius of agricultural thought and action in the Caribbean, the hemisphere, and beyond. Charleston, we thank you. We will rely on him, as we have always done, to guide us in an expert fashion to have this project realized. We have asked our colleagues from the St. Augustine campus, where the university has accumulated considerable expertise in the areas of research and training in agriculture, to help us to shape this intervention. My colleague principal, Professor Sankat, has asked Dr. Pemberton to share this moment as a symbol of his pledge to partner with CAFL and to help us to move upon the project in the years ahead. Over the weekend, I spoke with Sir Charles, Dr. Williams, we call him, Cow, you call him, and I shared with him the project on which we are about to be embarked. As one of the largest farmers in this country himself, he has pledged support to this project to help the university to realize our food science initiatives. I am sharing all of this because I wish Minister Eswick to be aware of the wider context of this project, which he has guided from inception. Minister Eswick is a noble and loyal graduate of the CAFL campus. And an energetic Minister of Agriculture who has thrown the full support of the government and his ministry behind this initiative. He has embraced it, he has domesticated it, and now it is his very own. And so I now have two ministers on whose shoulders I will cry, Minister Eswick and Minister Jones. when the campus is in need of desperate help. Minister Estwick, from the depth of my being, I thank you for your leadership, for standing with your alma mater in this difficult time, or for giving my colleagues, Dr. Fisher, with whom you have been engaged, your time and your commitment. We do not take this for granted. And so I received this investment from Mr. Eddie Edghill and Mrs. Edghill on behalf of the University of the West Indies. I thank them for their vision and generosity. We hope that it will be a symbol of what can be imagined and achieved and implemented in the field of science, agriculture, and education. Finally, I thank you for this enormous endorsement, the Edghill family. I thank you for this enormous endorsement of the role of the UWI in the continued development and transformation of Barbados and the wider Caribbean. I thank you all and good morning.
Thank you, Sir Hilary, for placing today's event in historical perspective. Cave Hill, as you might know, does not have a full-fledged faculty of agriculture, although we have a plant pathologist, several biochemists, Professor Tinter among us, a horticulturist, soil specialists, food safety experts, as well as water resource management specialists. In establishing the proposed center, Sir Hilary has mentioned that we'll be collaborating with our sister campus in St. Augustine. But you should know that we also envisage that the academic partnership would encompass our sister institutions such as the Samuel Jackman Presburg Polytechnic and the Barbados Community College, the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology, and the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, among others. We'll also collaborate with the private sector. Sir Hilary has pleasantly surprised us with his weekend conversation with Sir Carl Williams. But I'll also tell you that IBM, in the person of Ian Castillo, its general manager, is also one of our partners. I'd like now to call on Dr. Carlisle Pemberton, the Dean of the newly renamed Faculty of Food and Agriculture at St. Augustine, who has graciously agreed to give remarks at this transformative moment for our two campuses, and I now welcome him to the podium.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I see the rain has intensified with my coming to the podium. Maybe that's a good sign from above. But Honorable Minister Jones, Minister of Education, Dr. the Honorable David Estwick, Minister of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Water Resources, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Principal and Pro Vice Chancellor of Cave Hill Campus, Mr. Eddie Edghill, our kind donor, and Dr. Chelston Braffett, Chairman of the National Agricultural Commission, and of course a former lecturer in the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of the West Indies, distinguished parliamentarians, permanent secretaries, other persons and distinguished staff from Cave Hill, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here this morning to represent the principal of the St. Augustine campus, Pro Vice Chancellor Clement Sankat, at this historical event. Of course, Principal Sankat would have loved to be here with his deep passion for the development of Caribbean agriculture, but his very busy schedule at this, the start of the new academic year, did not permit his presence here today. I also bring you greetings on behalf of the new Faculty of Food and Agriculture, which only started on the 1st of August of this year. And in fact, this important event is also important for our faculty, since it represents the first event in a CARICOM state outside of Trinidad at which the faculty has been represented. Well, I could not, of course, try to duplicate the historical significance of this event as has been so aptly stated by Sir Hilary. But on a personal note, it is with deep pleasure for me to be here on this particular beautiful day, well, except for the rain, and on this beautiful island of all these beaches. We in Trinidad and Tobago, of course, always wish that we could import at least one beach from Barbados to Trinidad. We only want one, you know, and that would be quite satisfied. But we have been fortunate over the years to have had with us in the faculty many brilliant Barbadian students, one of whom I see in front here today. And we hope that this initiative would increase that flow to the faculty. But more generally, this event marks an important development in the region's agriculture. The aim to establish a Center for Food Security and Entrepreneurship is certainly a novel and a timely one. Food and nutrition security has been highlighted by recent events, most recently by the drought that has affected Canada and parts of the United States. But we have also had, through the CARICOM Secretariat, some focus on food and nutrition security through the Regional Food and Nutrition Security Policy, which was recently, or a few years ago, adopted by COTED. Now, this regional policy aims to achieve for the region the following major objectives: increasing the availability and access to food in the region, improving the nutritional status of the region's population, and stabilizing the regional food supply. However, these objectives can only be achieved by regional food production that is internationally competitive, and this requires us achieving the highest standards of efficiency and ensuring that food is made available to our consumers at the lowest cost while maintaining the highest nutritive standards. There is therefore a key role for entrepreneurship in the achievement of food and nutrition security, and therefore the selection of the joint foci of food security and entrepreneurship for the proposed center is indeed to be highly commended. The Faculty of Food and Agriculture stands committed to support actively and to participate in the proposed center. One immediate area of collaboration can be with respect to our graduate program in food security, which is currently being planned in the Department of Agriculture, Economics and Extension. Given this creative enterprise of the center, I am sure we will give due consideration to including the area of entrepreneurship in our programs and to seek to forge close links with the proposed center. Now, food production and the contribution of the agricultural sector to overall economic development are also important as CARICOM countries strive to maintain the diversity of their economies. Overdependence on any one sector, be it petroleum or tourism, or probably going to say, heaven help us, offshore banking, is never a good economic development strategy. And our campus principal has outlined very clearly how important competitiveness is to any good economic development strategy. So in this international scenario of acquisitions and mergers and openness of international trade, a diversified economy with production choices based on domestic efficiency and competitiveness is the best overall economic strategy. For the agricultural sector to play a role in economic development in the region, therefore, production will have to be as efficient as possible so that the price of domestically produced food is as low as that of imported food. This calls for high input of science and technology and improved practices in agricultural production, processing, and marketing. Thus, the creation of a farm at this site for the training of a new cadre of skilled persons would certainly be a milestone in agriculture and economic development in Barbados, as well as the region. Congratulations are therefore in order for this first step, the acquisition of the land at this site. We again, of course, on behalf of the St. Augustine campus, would like to thank the economic heroes of the Edghill family for their generous donation. So again, let me reiterate the commitment and support of the Faculty of Food and Agriculture and the St. Augustine campus of UWI in this initiative. We again thank the principal of the KFL campus, Sir Hilary Beckles, for his kind invitation for us to be represented here today, and we look forward to great developments in the near future at this site. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Pemberton. We look forward to close collaboration for mutual benefit. In his February 2011 paper, An Agricultural College for Barbados, which expresses his concern about Barbados' lack of food security, Mr. Eddie Edghill indicated, and I quote, "No trust necessary to achieve and re-establish, improve and upgrade agriculture in Barbados is today realistic in our evolved environment, since the old-fashioned ways of land preparation and agricultural methods lack, particularly in the younger section of the population, higher standards in agricultural teaching, training, equipment, and encouragement. A large enough block of land must be made available for an appropriate learning institution in a selected high production area of Barbados. Proper and up-to-date teaching and training facilities must be made available. I see a degree course on offer, all equipping students at a practical level, trained and confident that he or she can go out on their own, all dedicated to making his or her mark on an agricultural base for Barbados." Ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, where there is the lack of vision, people perish. I have in recent months had the pleasure of several conversations not only with a visionary, but a Barbadian patriot, courageous enough to act on his convictions. It is my pleasure to call on Mr. Eddie Edghill to offer remarks.
Dr. the Honourable David Estwick, Minister of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Water Resource Management. Dr. Sir Hilary Beckles, Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, and our several other distinguished guests present. I am grateful to all previous speakers and those who might come after for the expressions of thanks conveyed to me and my wife Vanessa on the gift of land forming part of the lands of Jukes and Fortress plantations here in St. Thomas. The grant which we have today made has become welcomed with open arms, and the Edghills too are satisfied that under the guidance of the distinguished Sir Hilary and his highly skillful and dedicated team at the University of the West Indies, the development and use of this site will stand our country in good stead over the years to come. Throughout many years of association with my family ownership of sugar estates across Barbados, I have been constantly aware that sound knowledge and proper training in the discipline of agriculture has been sorely missing. Across the length and breadth of our country, few persons in management positions in agriculture even today hold no certification of any educational abilities or training in the subject of agriculture. I also think the time in our country's development has come when persons in management and leadership positions in the sugar industry of Barbados must have a background of training in the discipline of agriculture. And likewise, the various levels of workers in agriculture are also in need of training to increase the very quality of our product. I really need to take this no further, especially because we all know there are hundreds of young men and women out there in our society who can be sensitized to learn more on the employment of their choice and be encouraged to work for themselves whenever the occasion arises. This site is in a prime location in the High St. Thomas and cannot be bettered, and it will give our enthusiastic principal, in association and blessing of his caring and enthusiastic government, and Mr. Minister, I must give you that question. I know that I have that commitment from them, and hopefully many benefactors, as in the instance of Sir Charles, the opportunity to annex to the campus an excellent unit for use in the training of our Barbadian people. Of course, collaboration with our neighbours in CARICOM and their own institutions of learning, and we've had experience already this morning from our distinguished gentlemen from Trinidad, many of whom are already focused in the direction of agriculture, will satisfy a need which will stand us all in good stead over the coming years. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the wish of me and my wife and family today. And I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Edghill, for pointing the way forward. Today is possible because of the keen partnership of the Ministry of Agriculture with us. Permanent Secretary Michael King embraced the concept, and as our principal has said, Minister Estwick has truly championed the establishment of the centre with support that goes beyond platitudes. There's very real support that's been put into this so far. At this time, I request our Minister of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Water Resource Management, the very energetic Dr. the Honourable David Estwick, to offer remarks.
Mr. Eddie Edghill and Mrs. Edghill, Sir Hilary Beckles, Principal of the University of the West Indies, Capefield Campus, other senior officials of the University of the West Indies, Capefield Campus, my colleague, Honorable Ronald Jones, Minister of Education and Human Resource Development, Dr. Chelston Brathwaite, Director General Emeritus of ICA, Permanent Secretary and other officials of the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Water Resources Management and its statutory corporations, other senior government officials, head of regional and international organizations based here in Barbados, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning. It is indeed a pleasure to participate in today's ceremony to launch the University of the West Indies Centre for Food Security and Entrepreneurship, and to join in expressing the sincerest gratitude of the Government of Barbados to Mr. and Mrs. Eddie Edghill for their significant donation of land at Duke's Plantation to the university and to the people of Barbados. This timely gesture coincides with the work being undertaken within the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Water Resources Management to reposition the agricultural sector in Barbados as we embark on a journey to promote the production of healthy foods for the benefit of our citizens. It is most heartening to see that a distinguished son of the soil is taking advantage of the provisions of the existing legislation related to philanthropy in Barbados in order to contribute to the building of human capacity in the area of food production and research and entrepreneurship in Barbados and also in the wider Caribbean. Since 1948, the university has produced some outstanding citizens in the field of engineering, medicine, science, education, law, economic planning and development, among other things. For this tradition to continue, philanthropy must have a more defined role, and the government of the Caribbean Caribbean countries must ensure that legislation is put in place to allow our citizens to play a horizontal role in assisting governments with their national development priorities, especially in the areas of science, knowledge, development, and research. The successful model used by the private, national, and state universities around the world has allowed those institutions to build human and institutional capacity in the critical areas of science and in technology. In spite of the economic challenges faced by governments worldwide, it is absolutely necessary for key decision makers to develop a stronger ethos in the promoting of financing of research and development programs within our tertiary institutions. As a result, the generosity of the Edghill family, the University of the West Indies has been placed in a position to promote sustainable agriculture, which will be research-driven and which will impact positively upon the ability of our youth to seriously pursue careers in the science of agriculture and food production. May I remind you that the center is being launched when many Caribbean countries, including Barbados, have been designated as food insecure nations. The distinguished Barbadian Dr. Chelson Brathwaite has stated on numerous occasions that any country that is unable to provide food for most of its citizens cannot be a free country. And in this regard, we must inculcate in our youth the importance of the new technologies in agriculture, and so that their knowledge and skills would be harnessed for the benefit of our countries. I wish to confirm that the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries, and Water Resources Management and its relevant institutions will collaborate with the university in this venture by making its technical expertise available whenever that is required, sir. We must also recognize that the Barbados Community College and the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic will have a role to play in the collaborative effort as well, and such horizontal cooperation is mandatory if the center is to successfully fulfill its mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, partnerships between government and academic institutions have helped to fashion the growth and development of many societies. For too long, there has been a missing element that promotes cooperation encouraged by philanthropic giving. Indeed, too many developing countries suffer from a lack of financial resources in the area of research and development. If one were to examine the recent economic and social developments of the BRIC countries, one would instantly become aware of the resources allocated to research and development in those countries, thus leading to the major advancements in science and technology specifically. As a small country, we should not let our size prevent us from yearning for excellence in science and technology. And in this regard, the wonderful gift of the Edghill family should serve to be an example to other Barbadians to complement the efforts of the government through their philanthropic actions. We must also take a very serious approach in providing a scientifically educated class of agriculturalists in the Caribbean, and I sincerely hope that this kind of philanthropy will lead to others taking similar actions towards guaranteeing the food security of the Caribbean, whose citizens should have access to the right to healthy food. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've often said in other times, when I try to make a point, that if Jesus Christ went to Central Park and the media was not there, he didn't go. I want to take this opportunity to welcome the media, and we register your presence. It's a bit irreverent, but I did say that. It is now my pleasure to call on our featured speaker, a man who asks fundamental questions about food security in Barbados, one who sometimes unearths inconvenient truths, possessed with an intellect that equips him to propose practical and innovative solutions, the forward-thinking chairman of the National Agricultural Commission, Dr. Chelson Brathwaite.
Mr. Master of Ceremonies, the heavens are pouring their blessings on this noble initiative. Today is not like any other day. It was a special day in the history of agricultural development in our nation. The Honorable Ronald Jones, Minister of Education, the Honorable David Estwick, Minister of Agriculture, Professor Hilary Beckles, Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor, Cave Hill Campus, Mr. and Mrs. Eddie Edghill and family. And when I wrote this, I said we must recognize the Duke and Duchess of Duke Plantation. Senator Rashid Orlando Marville, Permanent Secretary King, Permanent Secretary Humphrey, Deputy Principal Professor Undine Barreto, Campus Registrar Mrs. Jacqueline Wade, Principal of the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic and representative of Community College, members of the National Agricultural Commission, Mr. Daniel Jordan, my colleague and friend, members of the Finance and General Purposes Committee of the Cave Hill Campus, my colleague, Mr. Keith Laurie, deans, Dr. Carlisle Pemberton, my colleague from St. Augustine, heads of department, other members of the campus community, members of the media, my wife Rosanna, my sister Ursula. I come with my moral support, you see. Colleagues, friends of the university, good morning. At the first meeting of the recently established National Agricultural Commission held in February of this year at the Ministry of Agriculture, the Honorable Minister, David Estwick, said the agricultural sector of Barbados needs a radical overhaul. Based on the Minister's comments and subsequent discussions, the Ministry has begun a process of review of the agricultural sector in Barbados. For 300 years and thereabout, the agricultural sector of this country has been dominated by the production of sugar from sugarcane, which was sold at preferential prices to the European market. But with trade liberalization and globalization, the preferences have disappeared and we can no longer produce sugar economically. The situation of a radical change in the economic realities of a major contributor to the economy represent a moment, in my view, for action, a moment for decision, a moment to change the course of our history, a moment for transformation. Recently, the Honorable Minister announced the need to stop exporting bulk sugar to Europe. He indicated it is not good maths because we are producing it at $4,000 a ton and selling it to Europe for $980. And any first form student will tell you that is not good maths. The decision by the Honorable Minister, subject to Cabinet approval, is a significant change, which represents, in my view, the severing of the umbilical cord which has connected this country to an unproductive enterprise for many, many years. The time has come for change. We must review the purpose and the strategic direction of our agricultural sector and create an agricultural sector for the 21st century that meets our needs. The review of the agricultural sector of Barbados must be considered in the context of the recent profound changes in the global economy and the agricultural sector of the world. This review is being carried out at a time when the world is facing its most severe social and economic crisis since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Today, the world faces an economic crisis, a financial crisis, an unemployment crisis, an environmental crisis, a food crisis, and a crisis of confidence. Never before in the history of the world have we had this perfect storm. Never before, even in the 1930s, we did not have this situation that we have today, in which countries are assessing their strategies going forward. And in some cases, when you listen to the news of what's happening in Greece and what's happening in Spain and what's happening around the world, it is clear that there are no simple answers. The current global economic situation was recently vividly described by Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel laureate and chairman of the committee set up by the United Nations to reform the financial system. And this is what Stiglitz had to say. It is important to recognize that what began as a crisis in the financial sector has now become an economic crisis. According to the International Labour Organization, some 200 million workers, mostly in developing economies, will be pushed into poverty if rapid action is not taken to counter the impact of this crisis. Even in some advanced industrial countries, millions of households are faced with the threat of losing their homes, their jobs, and access to health care, access to their life savings, which have disappeared with the collapse of asset prices. And the ILO estimates that unemployment in 2009 could increase by 30 million compared to 2007 and reach almost 60 million if conditions continue to deteriorate. While the crisis began in the financial markets of the advanced industrial countries and then spread to the real economy in many developing countries, the initial impact of the crisis has been felt in the rail sector very early. Developing countries are being affected through falling export demand, accompanied by reversals of capital flows and reduction in remittances. While developing countries have the fiscal flexibility to respond, many of our countries are not so endowed. And so today, we face a new reality. We face a new reality that demands new answers, new systems, new levels of efficiency, new levels of commitment. In 2008, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization reported a 45% increase in the World Food Price Index. Wheat prices increased by 130%, soybean prices increased by 37%, rice prices increased by 84%, and maize prices increased by 31%. This increase in prices of these basic commodities resulted in a dramatic increase in the cost of living around the world and has resulted in many persons returning to poverty. All over the world, governments and organizations have been taking actions to cope and combat this increase in the cost of food. For example, at the G8 meeting in Italy in 2009, the G8 countries pledged $20 billion to support food security, nutrition, and sustainable agriculture around the world. Around the world, policies and programs have been developed and implemented to combat the food crisis. These policies and programs had one central element: improving the performance of the agricultural sector by providing more resources to support local food production. From China to Chile, from Brazil to Australia, the food and agricultural sector has become the focus of attention. The World Bank in 2008 reported that agriculture is the key to sustainable development if our countries are to reach the Millennium Development Goals. And recently, our Minister of Agriculture made the following comments in the Agricultural Digest. He said, over the years, the agricultural sector has lost its position of being one of the key contributors to economic development in Barbados. We need to turn around the negative perceptions of the sector, especially among the youth, that agriculture is about menial work. It is my desire to get the message across that agriculture can be just as profitable as any other business and is indeed a viable career option to be pursued. It is important to remember that without agriculture, there will be no food, an undesirable state of affairs that can lead to social unrest. Nothing emphasizes this point more than the food crisis of 2008, which had a devastating effect on the global food security supply system. And this crisis brought about soaring food prices, resulted in reduced availability of and access to food, and riots in over 20 countries. During the year 2011, continuing the minister's quote, the world was again faced with a situation of soaring food prices that by mid-2011 were even higher than the 2008 prices. The general consensus now is that rising prices are likely to be a permanent feature of the international commodity markets and are not likely to return to prices before 2008. As a net food importing country with a soaring food import bill, this forecast is perturbing, especially when we take into consideration the detrimental impact that this can have on the country's balance of payments. No longer can we take our food security for granted. End of quote. The minister's comments underscores a reality of our time, that Barbados is one of the most food insecure countries of this hemisphere. The food import bill, which has been estimated as $653 million in 2011, is increasing dramatically. It has moved from $32 million in 1968 to $653 million in 2011. Recent evidence suggests that the country is only producing 25% of the food we consume. Food imports as a percent of total imports have increased from 15% in the year 2000 to 24% in 2011. Sugar production continues to decline, and non-sugar agriculture has not been able to fill the gap. Recently, I did an analysis with respect to Jamaica. Jamaica has a food import bill of $900 million, but Jamaica has 2.8 million people. In this country, we have a food import bill of $300 million with a population of 280,000. So our food insecurity is 3 times that of Jamaica, just as an example. In Barbados, in this country, there are those who believe that agriculture has no place in a modern economy and feel that we should concentrate our efforts on building a service economy based on tourism and financial services. The Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, Prime Minister of Jamaica, recently told Jamaica in the celebration of 50 years of independence, and I quote, "Our independence means very little if as a nation we cannot feed ourselves." Our independence means very little if as a nation we cannot feed ourselves. I share the Prime Minister's view in the context of Barbados, and I wish that those who think that we should abandon the agricultural sector and hitch our wagon on tourism and financial services would take a quick look at the global food situation and the challenges the country faces in relation to increasing global prices. During a recent review of the sector, we found 9 reasons why this country should continue to preserve, protect, and invest in its agricultural sector. These reasons are fully described in the draft white paper which we have prepared, and I'll just mention them briefly for the moment. Barbados should continue to invest, protect, and preserve its agricultural sector because the global food situation is worsening. Barbados should continue to protect, preserve, and invest in its agricultural sector because of the need to prepare for the impact of climate change. We need to note the increased incidence of chronic non-communicable diseases in the country, the need to diversify the tourism industry and retain more of the tourist dollar. It is surprising that in a country that receives over half a billion tourists, 500 million per year, we have not developed a specific strategy to feed the tourists. There's a need to generate jobs and employment opportunities in the food production and the food services sector. the need to preserve the environment and the natural beauty of this country, the need to respond to the supermarket revolution and the demand for convenience food, the situation of the sugar industry, and the need to reduce the cost of living, reduce poverty, and reduce crime. We stand today at a historic moment in the development of our country. 114 years ago, in 1898, the British government established the Imperial Department of Agriculture for the West Indies here in Barbados to supervise the agricultural and horticultural research and developments in the West Indies, I quote. 24 years later, all the activities of the department were transferred to Trinidad as part of the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture, which subsequently became the Faculty of Agriculture of the University of the West Indies. Today, 90 years after the transfer, we are assembled here at Duke's Plantation in this beautiful country to create history again and to initiate a process to establish a Center for Food Security and Entrepreneurship in Barbados. And I believe that many of you in the audience would have 4 questions. The 4 questions which I think you would have is, why at Duke's? Why food security? Why entrepreneurship? And what do we hope to achieve? The answer to the first question is very simple. As you have heard, we're at Duke's because the wonderful family of Eddie Edghill and his family have kindly agreed to donate some 40 acres of land to the university. The world will be a better place for this donation. A contribution of this nature fits into the Chinese proverb, which says, if you want to make a contribution for a year, plant rice. If you want to make a contribution for a decade, plant a tree. But if you want to make a contribution for a lifetime, educate people. The review of the agricultural sector is almost complete. The ministry undertook national consultations to obtain the opinions of the stakeholders. The draft white paper, prepared in collaboration with my colleagues from ICA and the Ministry Planning Unit, sets out in very bold terms a future for agriculture of this country. We indicate that the global demand for food will continue to increase as there's 75 million more people in the world every year. And climate change, the impact of which we have not completely understood at the moment, will result in floods, droughts, hurricanes, which will reduce available food supplies. Will be drought in the United States and Canada today. Will be drought in Australia tomorrow. Be floods in Argentina, floods in Australia, fires, etc. Climate change, one of the most unpredictable issues of our time, will continue to impact food supplies globally in a negative way. If this country maintains its current path of increasing its dependency on imported food, it will not escape the negative impact of costly increases in food imports. In addition to importing food, inflation, and increase in the country's risk to external vulnerability. The high dependence on imported food is already affecting the economy. The cost of living and the welfare of the population is at risk. Recent data from the central bank shows that inflation climbed from 3.7% in 2009 to 9.4% in 2011. And the major component of the increase in inflation is the costs, or are the costs, of energy and food. These increases in the cost of living will have its greatest impact on the lower income group of our country, the poor and vulnerable of our society. Any attempt by government to cushion these impacts by whatever strategy that they may imply will have a cost. It will cost the Treasury if the government seeks to cushion the impact of these increases in prices. Given the tight financial situation of the government, high food prices and high dependency on imported food, the strategic options available to Barbados to reduce food prices and reduce living costs for income groups are very limited. Measures to reduce food prices through subsidies or reducing tariffs will place greater pressures on the government resources, which are already very limited, to meet recurrent expenditure. In the circumstances, augmenting local food supplies to lower the costs of imported food through domestic production of food is the most effective and sustainable strategic option available to this country. As a result, the document recommends a new approach to food and agriculture in Barbados. The imperatives for a new approach are driven by a number of factors. The epidemic of non-communicable diseases, including diabetes, stroke, hypertension, obesity, and others. The increase in food import bill. Decline in productivity and the decline in profits from the sale of bulk sugar. The need to generate employment opportunities. The need to deepen and strengthen the tourism sector. The global food supply situation is worsening. Food inflation is becoming a major component of inflation. Limited land space and the need to rationalize our land use. Limited topsoil and the need to preserve our soils. Climate change and the impact that it will have on our food supplies. The need for innovation, technology, and the application of agricultural science in the thrust toward food security. And the increasing demand for convenience foods by the consumer. Another issue which is critical for us is the increasing use of biotechnology and genetically modified foods in the food markets around the world. This required vigilance and the relevant protocols. As I mentioned 2 months ago, the United States Department of Agriculture announced a drought in the United States, and this means that food prices will rise. The National Food and Nutrition Plan should have as its fundamental objective to increase the production, consumption of safe, fresh, and healthy food for this nation. Evidence suggests that chronic communicable diseases are promoted and fashioned by the importation of processed food, high in trans fat, salt, sugars, and other additives. A food plan should therefore seek to provide for this country fresh, healthy food at reasonable prices. The plan envisages the development of 6 fundamental industries. A sugarcane industry producing sugar for local consumption, energy, and molasses for rum. A fruit and vegetable industry producing fruits and vegetables for the nation. A root crops industry dedicated to the production and processing of yam, sweet potatoes, and other roots. A Barbados black belly sheep industry related to satisfying the need for lamb in our countries, where currently we are importing 90% of our needs. A livestock feed industry based on the production of cassava and corn to supply the feed for our livestock. When prices increase in the United States for corn and soybean and wheat, feed prices in our country rise. And when feed prices rise, everything else rises. Meat, milk, cheese, butter, all the products that are related to the industries. And finally, a modern fishing industry. Increased production of 24 basic commodities which we are currently importing, including onions, lettuce, lamb, and carrots, which we can produce. We propose the establishment of a new marketing facility, the incorporation of a wholesale market for farmers, and the development of a farmers' mall. We propose the development of a market information system that will assess the supply and demand for food in the country. We propose the development of a model farm and a farmers' trading center. And this project here at Jukes could be the basis of that. We propose the establishment of food production zones, areas of the country dedicated to food production, which will allow for the incorporation of new technologies, utilize our lands in a strategic way, and limit the invasion of agricultural land by real estate and other activities. New legislation and policies on land use, food imports, pre-deal larceny, and food safety are proposed. A new Ministry of Food and Nutrition Security is proposed. And one wonders, why a Ministry of Food and Nutrition Security? We believe a Ministry of Food and Nutrition Security is fundamental for our country because one of the challenges we have faced in developing food systems in our country is that issues dealing with food are distributed among different ministries. We have seen situations in which one ministry has responsibility for food imports and another ministry responsibility for food production. And many times the information in relation to what is being imported and what is available locally is not communicated. We believe, therefore, that food should be looked at as a strategic area of the community, a strategic area of the society, and a Ministry of Food and Nutrition Security would respond to that need. That ministry would treat with issues that have to do with food safety, food quality, food labeling, and everything that has to do with feeding the nation. We propose the development of an agricultural development bank. In a real sense, we believe it's fundamentally important that financial resources be made available to the agricultural sector in ways that the commercial banks do not now address. The forging of a new partnership is one of the proposals of the plan. A partnership between the government, the private sector, farmers, and the educational institutions of the country led by the University of the West Indies. Just as we have the social partners, we are proposing a food security partners, a partners of interested parties, the government, the farmers, the university, and the private sector to work together to feed this nation. Successful implementation of this plan will depend on 10 strategic inputs. The political will and the commitment to change. We must change from a food importing country to a food producing country. We will never be able to produce all that we consume. But ladies and gentlemen, we can do much better than we're doing today. Institutional reform and institutional change, availability of financial resources, appropriate human resources, appropriate policies, consumer education. Very few of our consumers understand the nutritive value of our local foods. We must have farmers linked to the local market, and we must incorporate new technology into production and marketing. We must establish a marketing facility with appropriate market information. And as I mentioned earlier, let us establish farmers training and a model farm. Let me say a few words about research, innovation, and training. The agricultural sector and the food production sector in particular will have to embrace new technology. We can no longer continue to do research that is conceived in the minds of scientists, that is planned and executed without the involvement of those for whom it's intended, that is presented at scientific meetings and placed on the shelves of our libraries for posterity. The research needs of today is for research that is client-led, that is creative, that seeks to solve real problems which limit the growth and development of an agribusiness enterprise or primary production process. The research of the future must respond to the needs of the productive sectors of our economy, and this will open new doors for private sector participation and private sector support for research. Research must be seen, therefore, as an input into production and not as a result by itself. What is needed is competitive research funds that can be made available to our researchers. And we must incorporate the new information technology into agriculture. Many other sectors have incorporated the role of the internet and the various communication technologies very efficiently to increase productivity and competitiveness. In agriculture, we are way behind. Let us use the cell phone. Let us use the internet. Let us use the various intellectual models and tools in the agricultural sector as well. This is very important in areas such as marketing, extension, and communication of new technology. And my third question is, Why entrepreneurship? Why do we see a center that brings together food security and entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is the ability to create new human enterprise or new business enterprise by the application of creativity, innovation, business acumen, science and technology to supply products that satisfy human needs. It is generally agreed that small and medium-sized enterprises will be the engine of future growth in our countries. A healthy economy is not only driven by greater efficiency and productivity, a healthy economy is driven by innovation and enterprise. We must seek ways, therefore, of ensuring that in this country, we promote innovation and enterprise to move to the next level of our economic development. We cannot sit around hoping for some rich foreign investor to come to our country with a big bag of money to invest in a big enterprise to employ our people. The evidence suggests that the future will depend on local investment from local minds, developing local products for the local economy. And we must do all that we can to support those small businesses that will employ 2 people, 3 people, or 10 people, because that is where our future will be. We therefore need entrepreneurs who will invent new products and new services with some extra passion, local flavor, local ingredients, and with a personal touch. That is what entrepreneurship is all about. Food security and entrepreneurship come together when entrepreneurs use their creativity, their business acumen, the science and technology to produce new foods, new ways of preparing known foods, new processes to make food more nutritious, healthier, more affordable, new ways of storing food, increasing the shelf life of food, creating strategies for increasing the efficiency of food production, reducing post-harvest losses, and strategies that result in the use of sustainable energy in food production. And so we need to convert our farmers into entrepreneurs so that they understand that their farm is a business enterprise and they will take decisions based on risks and analysis of risk and opportunity in the future. And that brings me to my last question. What do we hope to achieve? We hope to promote in this center sustainable food production systems. The sugarcane industry provides Barbados with a landscape that is aesthetically pleasing. In addition, the sugarcane plant helps to reduce erosion and add organic matter to the soils, which helps to preserve our fragile ecosystems and the provision of water for aquifers. The reorganization of the sugar industry must take into consideration environmental concerns and the potential negative impact of a demise of the industry. For that reason, the proposal supports the continuation of a sugarcane industry to provide energy, molasses, and rum, and as the base for crop rotation with food crops. We cannot allow our fields to become overrun by bush and cabbage, to harbor rats and other pests, which could be a threat to public health and to the tourism industry. We therefore believe that Barbados must seek to become a green economy, and such a goal must include sustainable agricultural systems based on good agricultural practice, organic agriculture, sustainable farming practices, increased use of naturally produced, sustainably developed inputs, reducing soil erosion, reducing the use of chemical pesticides and herbicides, and reducing food spoilage and loss. And so, we're here today because we strongly believe that we're the beginning of a new phase in our development. We believe that the university, using this center, can demonstrate its responsibility and its commitment to environmental sustainability, the use of clean technologies, and the generation of knowledge and agribusiness. We believe that the center should become a place to provide students and professors and the university community with an awareness of the need to care for the environment and to promote sustainable production systems within the context of a green economy, to provide a place where the university staff and students can carry out teaching and research in the biological and chemical sciences and demonstrate the latest technologies in food production, greenhouse technology, organic agriculture, precision agriculture, environmental science, among others. To contribute to the recent thrust in food security in our nation, to contribute to the reduction in the use of harmful pesticides, to contribute to the conservation of our soils, and to produce food that is safe, fresh, and wholesome for the Barbados population. The new vision for agriculture in Barbados, as it is being developed in the white paper by the Ministry of Agriculture, will not be successful unless we have trained human resources. The sector will need new human resources in production, marketing, and consumption, in food production, greenhouse technology, organic agriculture, etc. In addition, in marketing will be need for skilled persons in promotion of local foods, transport, storage, grading, packing, processing, etc. Food scientists, entomologists, pathologists, the variety of disciplines that are necessary in a modern agricultural framework. And so we see the need to produce a cadre of professionals who some of them can go on to St. Augustine to do their degrees, having obtained a basic diploma in the practical aspects of agriculture here. The center should become a place for agricultural research, where students and professors of the Department of Science and Technology and Agribusiness can work together to research on new products for the local market. We must forge effective partnerships, linkages with the Faculty of Agriculture in Trinidad, with the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic, with the Barbados Community College, and with other centers of learning in the country. We must link with friendly universities and governments, with the University of Florida, with Cornell University, with Duke University, with Embrapa, and with institutions of similar missions around the world. The center could also become an agro-tourism site, located as it does on the way to Harrison Cave. It could be a place for tourists to come and visit and see the latest in technology in the country and in agriculture. The financing requirements of this proposal will require more time to prepare and will require more profound understanding of the scope and dimensions of the project. The source of funding for the long-term sustainability must be identified, and a strategy for the enterprise to be self-financing in the medium term through the development of university enterprises and the sale of agricultural products must be considered. An endowment fund or foundation must be considered. One possible approach is to establish a foundation to collect financial contributions from Barbadians and friends of Barbados who share the vision and wish to contribute to food security and the diversification of the Barbados economy. The private sector, especially the banks and credit unions, must be asked to contribute. The center could be managed by a university manager and with a governing board made up of the principal, representative of the Ministry of Agriculture, representative of the Samuel Jackman Prescott, representative of the Barbados Community College, representative of the Faculty of Agriculture in Trinidad, representative of the donor of the lands, and a representative of the Faculty of Science and Technology at Cave Hill. In conclusion, the concept paper for the center defines the mission, the vision, the objectives, and the guiding principles. The mission: to promote training, research, entrepreneurship, and outreach activities in food production and agribusiness that support the thrust of Barbados to achieve higher levels of food security. The vision: to serve as a catalyst for food production and agribusiness in Barbados in the achievement of higher levels of food security and development of competitive, sustainable enterprises through the application of appropriate and modern technologies. The goals: to provide human resources that are necessary for modern agricultural sector, provide an environment for learning in sustainable food production system, support relevant research, promote viable agribusiness enterprises that contribute to adding value to Barbados agricultural products, promote innovation and entrepreneurship, demonstrate best management practices, and provide a place for the preservation of the plant genetic resources of this country. The guiding principles: a facility for the training of Barbadians and entrepreneurs in the basics of agricultural science and technology, a facility for conducting research on crop and livestock sustainable production systems, including the development of organic farming and good agricultural practices, a facility for the promotion of entrepreneurship in agriculture based on the use of locally produced materials which can be transformed into successful agribusiness enterprises, a facility which incorporates a commercial component that contributes to the long-term financial sustainability of the center by promoting viable university enterprises. We believe that with this mission, this vision, and these goals and guiding principles, the center can become a world-class institution and a vital link to the greater goal of increased food security in Barbados. I ask that each of you join in this noble mission to establish a center of excellence in food security and entrepreneurship in Barbados. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brathwaite. You continue to inspire us all. Exciting times lie ahead. At this juncture in the ceremony, we will have the signing of documents between Mr. Eddie Edghill, Mrs. Vanessa Edghill, and our principal.